Good morning, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of my podcast. Today's podcast is entitled The Seven Decisions. And as usual, I'm going to start this podcast off with a quote. May your choices reflect your hopes and not fears. And that's the quote by Nelson Mandela. Today, we're going to be talking about the book The Traveler's Gift. And the seven decisions are points that I have covered in other podcasts, but it's just briefly then I went over them. I didn't go over it in depth like I'm about to right now. Um, Again, what I have done in my life and has been helpful for me thus far is I have created a little mental template of information that I can recall that'll help me through difficult situations. Like earlier in the episodes, we covered the four agreements. The four agreements are things that I reference to help me through difficult times. The seven decisions are something similar to that. I have the four agreements that I think about when I'm in difficult times. I have the seven decisions I think about when I'm in difficult times. I have the poem Invictus, the poem See It Through, um, and I have a few other poems and little informational tidbits that I will call on when I have difficult times. So, and it all comes through reading and learning and just the process of self education, learning myself. There's no like structure to it. Like somebody has told me this or told me that. Like I just read or, pick up things as I go along. And based on how I want to live my life and the type of like prompt or motivation that I need when I know I'm in dark times, um, I just add it to my repertoire and use it as a collection of motivation to pull me through those dark times. Because at the end of the day, you know, it's you. All you got is you. You might have a good support system, you might have great friends, great family and stuff like that. But when it comes through the dark times, they'll play a part in helping you out, but ultimately it's going to be you that pulls you through those dark times, and you have to make a choice. Again, having a choice is one of the most powerful powers that a human being has in this world. You have the choice to be sad, you have the choice to be mad, you have a choice to let other people make you feel those emotions. I say make with air quotes because nobody can make you do anything. You have to let them do that. You have to give them that power. And again, that's the choice. So the seven decisions are choices that we can make on our lives that I feel are very impactful and should be very fundamental. Like when we've talked in previous podcasts about how we need to have our foundation solidified so that when we go into, the ebbs and flows in life, the highs and the lows, the dark times and the good times, we need something that will be foundational, even in the good times, something that we can stand on that will make decisions easier and will make life easier. And the four agreements and the seven decisions are a reflection of that. They're the principles that some of the principles that I use to make up the foundation. So when I'm in my dark times, I really don't have to make a decision because I've already said to myself that, hey, I'm going to stand by these seven decisions and I'm going to stand by these four agreements, whether times are good or bad. So then when it comes time to make decisions, whether in good times or bad times, it's relatively easy. Um, Again, I'm not saying that I'm perfect. I still got work to do. I still got practice to do. But these are definitely tools that I can go back and refer on that make things a whole lot easier than it would be if you just kind of, wandered your way through life, just, you know, getting lucky or pulling yourself from bad times by chance. There's a intentional way to live, a strategic way to live. And we, as in you and I, we got to work smarter, not harder. And I believe the seven decisions and the four agreements are definitely tools that can help us work smarter, not harder. The Traveler's Gift is a book that offers a very valuable lesson or lessons on situations that we can all relate to in one way or another. It is a story about how one's choices and attitudes make the difference between failure and success. Um, so the book starts out with the main character, David Ponder. he feels like a total failure. Once he was an executive at a Fortune 500, life was good, life was golden, had money, he was able to afford to do what he wanted to do, he could take care of his family, life was good. So something happens, he loses that job, he now works a part-time job, making minimum wage, and he struggles to support his family. Then in an even greater crisis, his daughter becomes ill, and he can't afford to get the medical help she needs. So just throughout that little bit of information based on the intro, we can, we can relate to that. I'm not saying like we have a sick child or, we lost a job at the Fortune 500, but in one way or another, we can relate to that. We have our own struggles. We have our own story to tell, like money might be tight. You might be in a dark place, a fall from glory. You might have been, high up here and now you're low down here and you're trying to work your way back to getting back to where you were, that's just his struggle. That's David Ponder's struggle, but I know that you have your own struggle that you're going through. And I know that you have your own demons that you're dealing with. And, it's all about perspective. He's getting down on himself. He's getting, in the dark place mentally and because of his situations. He's letting his circumstances and his predicament determine his outlook and his perception on life. And we can't do that because like how we talked about dreams and how dreams are important and how you see yourself and your vision of the future and stuff like that. If you don't have hope, if you don't have faith that there's going to be a better time, that things are going to turn around and become better, then you have nothing to look forward to. You have nothing that's going to, pull you through to the end. You have no finish line to observe. And even if we do pull ourselves to the end and we make it to that finish line, we have to set another goal. We can't get caught in the trap of thinking that life is good just because we're at one bad moment in time. Life has ebbs and flows. That's inevitable. So with the good times, there will be bad times. And I think that what makes the bad times worse and what makes the good times better is our perception on life. Our perception drives our reality. So if we focus on the good, if we focus on our foundation, if we focus on our reason why we continue to have that drive despite what's going on around us, then we can shape our reality in the way we feel about things. Because there's a lot of people out there that are extremely wealthy, but they're miserable. And there's a lot of people out there who are poor by, our definition, and they're extremely happy. So it's all about perception. Perception drives reality. By the end of the story, David decides to resolve the internal problems of his perception on life. The entire story revolves around David's changing attitude for his life. At the beginning, he is negative and doubtful. However, by the end, he is optimist. He becomes an optimist. So what happens is he is driving down the road. He's just overwhelmed. He has the weight of the world on his shoulders. His daughter is sick, whom I'm sure he loves very, very much. There's a snowstorm going on, and then he gets into a crash. And the crash was brought about by the weather and stuff like that, but he was in that mindset like, man, I really don't even want to live and stuff like that. Like, what's the point? I'm a failure. Like, I could do nothing for this world. Like, that's the kind of mindset and frame that he's in. He's just at wit's end. Everything seems to be falling apart. And as he crashes, I just take it as he becomes unconscious. But if you want to read into it, maybe he's swept away or taken through time or whatever. But once he crashes, he becomes unconscious, for argument's sake. And when he becomes unconscious, he's then guided through time where he meets important individuals at significant points in time. Some of the individuals he meets are King Solomon, Harry Truman, Colonel Joshua Chamberlain, and Anne Frank. He also meets the Archangel Gabriel. And he just learns lessons from these people throughout time. And these 7 individuals that he meets and he has, conversations with, and he's, learning their frame of mind, what decisions they make and why, and it's always during crucial moments in time. It's never just like randomly when they're sitting at home chilling or something. It's that crucial moments in time. And through these conversations with these individuals and these talks, he gets 7 decisions. And these 7 decisions are decisions that you can make on a daily basis that can control your perspective, your mindset, your look on life, and control how it impacts your life. Because knowledge is power, understanding is power. So, knowing, that the buck stops here, that, ultimately it's up to you, it's on you. Knowing that is one thing, but understanding that, hey, nobody's coming to save me. Like, it's all on me. I need to be in a place where I can help myself, whatever that means. And you have to ensure that you're ready to be in that place. You have to have that mindset. You have to conceptualize that, this concept. It can't just be something or something you say. It has to be something you feel and something that you are. You have to be who you say you are and believe who you say you are. And when you have that connection that you are who you say you are, then you're living a life that's congruent. Your thoughts and your actions line up, and that's when you have confidence in what you're doing and who you are. And that's why when the bad times come, you have that confidence to pull you through, because your thoughts and your actions align, and your being is focused on being the best person that you could possibly be and driving towards that goal. So here are the 7 decisions. The first decision is the buck stops here. And each of these have quotes that follow with them. So I'm going to read the quote as well, then explain it a little bit. So number 1 is the buck stops here. The words, "It is not my fault," should never again come from your mouth. The words, "It is not my fault," have been symbolically written on the gravestones of unsuccessful people ever since Eve took her first bite of the apple. At the end of the day, you are all you got. It is your fault. Whether you're successful, whether you're a failure, whether this happens, whether that happens, it's your fault. Another great book that would summarize this point is Complete Ownership, or Total Ownership, by Jocko Willink. I think I'm butchering the title. I can't remember right now, but if you type in Jocko Willink in ownership, it'll pop up. But he talks about, how to take ownership of your life, how to take ownership of situations. And you can do this whether you're in a leadership role or you're not in a leadership role, because leaders at one point in time were followers. So in order to be a good leader, you have to learn how to be a good follower. And one of the most important lessons that we can learn as individuals is ownership. Take ownership over situations. Like, if something's not working out, if something's going wrong, if something isn't up to the standard that you want it to be, and that can go for anything, for work, for your home life, for your love life, your relationships, for the relationship with your kids, your financial situation. Take ownership over it. This is my life. This is my situation. Nobody's going to change it but me. Nobody's coming to help me. Nobody's going to save me. It's all up to me. I take ownership. It's mine. It's mine. I own it. The second decision is I will seek wisdom. Only a fool refuses the counsel of a wise man. Find a wise man, a person who has accomplished what you wish for in your own life, and listen closely to his words. I was very fortunate to have my grandfather in my life. I didn't have my dad. My dad decided he didn't want to be in my life even before I was born, but I had my grandfather. And then in my family, I had a bunch of different men who were there that gave me a idea of what a man should be like, so that I could, build my perception of what a man should be like and then carry that out. So it's best for us to seek out individuals who are doing what we want to do or have what we want to have, and then take the wisdom from them and execute it in our own lives. And that goes for everything, for finances, for the business success, for relationship wise, with your family, friends, with your kids, all of that type of stuff. We need to seek out people who are successful in those areas and then obtain wisdom from them so that we can cut the learning curve instead of doing it by ourselves. If we see somebody who's married and they have a successful relationship, they're not divorced, they're married, they have kids, they have a house, the dog, white picket fence, all of that stuff, and that's what you want, that's what you want to obtain. Take advice from that person. How do you do it? How do you and your wife talk to each other? How do y'all get through the tough times? How do you divide up your work life, relationship and balance? How do you spend the most time with your kids? Stuff like that. And maybe if the family's not for you and you just want to be a successful businessman, seek out a businessman who's doing what you want to do. How did you take the first step? How did you secure this? How did you secure that? How did you network? How did you get this person to, be in on the venture, or that person to do this? Seek out wisdom, because sometimes the learning curve for learning and doing new things can be extremely steep. And if we could do anything to help us win and become smarter and work easier, then if we wouldn't have obtained the information, then I say let's do it. I've been really, really, really trying to implement the saying, work smarter, not harder. Because I'm not going to say easier, but there's a smarter way that we can go about living life. Trying to achieve success merely by, working a 9 to 5 is not going to do it. It's going to take effort, and it's going to take effort in the right direction. And to understand what that right direction is, you need knowledge and understanding. And you can get that knowledge and understanding through spending time with those who are wise, that have done it already, and who are successful in their endeavors and their ventures, and whatever realm of life that you decide you want to be successful in. So the third decision is, I am a person of action. When I am fixed with the choice, do nothing or do something, I will always choose to act. I am a person of action. Action is what's going to help us to achieve our goals. You can't be a person that is frozen by decision, that's indecisive. Because if you are indecisive, then at the end of the day, you're going to be stuck. If you're afraid to go left or right, you're just going to be stuck, and the opportunity may pass you by. Like when you're I haven't been deployed, but I've read a lot of books about people who have been in battles, and people like great leaders like General Hackworth and John Basilone and stuff like that. And one of the things that was very important about, or was very significant about them, was that they always chose to take action. They didn't freeze. They were very reactive. If they were fighting forward and then the enemy came from the side or whatever, they either put themselves in a position to handle it, or they ordered people in a position to handle it. They were not indecisive. They made decisions based on the information they had. They didn't take them like sometimes when we make decisions, we do have to step back and take time to process it and analyze it. But being frozen by indecisiveness is something totally different. We've talked about it in podcasts, paralysis by analysis. Like, you want to get as much information as you can before you make a decision, because you don't want to make a bad decision. Sometimes we just got to take that L. Like, sometimes that's just what we got to do. It's part of the learning process. But at least you made a decision. You know what I'm saying? At least you moved forward with it, and you made a choice. Instead of just sitting there and waiting for life to happen to you, you made life happen. All right, so decision number 4, I have a decided heart. A committed heart does not wait for conditions to be exactly right. Why? Because conditions are never exactly right. And this goes with being, decisive. Just if you have a goal, if you have a purpose, if you have a mission you want to achieve, make the best decision in light of the information that you have at that point in time. There's never an instance where you'll have all the information. There'll be some information that you won't have, that you won't have access to. And it might be for lack of knowledge, like you just didn't research it, you just didn't look for it, or you didn't even know to look for it. But at certain parts in time, point in times when we make decisions, we're not going to have all the information available. We're not going to be able to see into the future. We're not going to be able to predict it. That's the exception. Like, the exception to the rule is that, you do have all the information and stuff like that. But by and large, you just have to have a decided heart. And part of that decided heart is having the foundation that we discussed so much in my podcast. Like the 4 agreements and the 7 decisions, they're nothing but reminders about who you are and the choices that you've already decided to make in your life. So when you have that foundation is a decided heart that, hey, when I get to this fork in the road and my choices lie between this and that, I already decided that this is who I'm gonna be. So whatever choice aligns with that is the choice that I'm going to take, for good or for bad. And then I'll just adapt and overcome. That's what having a decided heart looks like. Doing what you need to do, what you have to do, despite fear. Number 5, our 5th decision. Today I will choose to be happy. Both of us remember that life itself is a privilege, but to live life to the fullest, well, that is a choice. Again, like we have talked about in the podcast previous to this one, the ability to have a choice to decide, how you're going to live your life and the emotions that you're going to allow yourself to show and feel, and, just how you're going to exist and thrive within the world. It's all a choice. You have a choice to be happy. You don't have a choice or a say in the matter in the situations you go through necessarily in life, but you do have a choice in how gracefully or how you're going to proceed through them emotionally. If every time you get into a bad situation, you have a bad attitude, you're grumpy, you're mad, you're angry, life sucks, I always get a bad hand in life, why can't I be successful like other people, then the lessons you learn and the experiences you learn are going to be tough, and they're going to be drawn out, and you're going to have to keep repeating them because you can't see what you're supposed to learn at that point in time. But if you choose to be happy despite the situation, if you choose to be graceful in how you fall and pick yourself back up, then you're going to learn the lesson. You're going to see the positive in every negative situation, and you're going to be able to go through these down times gracefully. You're not going to even be phased. Like, you might fall, but you'll get right back up because you understand that life has ebbs and flows, and this is nothing but a flow right now, or an ebb. It's just life. So choose to be happy, choose to be in control of your emotions. Number 6, the 6th decision. I will greet this day with a forgiving spirit. Don't you be mad at you. Forgive yourself. Begin anew. The past is the past, and the future hasn't come yet. The only thing you have to deal with and to work with is the present. Forgive yourself. You made the best decision at that place in time, or at that point in time, that you felt will be the best for what you want to do and for your goals and stuff in life. So there's no use in dwelling in the past. There's no use in tearing yourself down over what you did or what's already happened and stuff like that. It is what it is. So forgive yourself. Today's a new day. You can start a new chapter in your book. You do not have to draw on this chapter or repeat another page or backstep or anything like that. You can make a totally new chapter. It's totally up to you. Have a decided heart. Choose to feel the emotions that you want and need to feel, and then execute. Execute on your dreams and on your goals. Just greet today with a forgiving spirit. Forgive yourself, forgive others. Just move on. There's no use to holding on to all that baggage, because when you hold on to that baggage, it only hurts you. Because the person you're mad at, the person that you felt made you sad, or is the reason that you're in the condition you're in today, they're living their life not worried about you or your feelings or your emotions. So you just have to move on forward, focus on you, forgive and forget, and just move on. Do your best, Well, never forget, because you always want to remember the lessons that you've learned, because you don't want to repeat the test. But forgive people, because that baggage is heavy and it's weighing nobody down but yourself. And the last decision, I will persist without exception. The tragedy of life is not that man loses, but that he almost wins. I will persist without exception. That basically sums it up. That's my favorite decision. It basically is the non-quitting spirit. It's the fighter spirit. It's having determination and being able to, again, have a positive attitude, seeing the ebbs and flows in life and saying, hey, this is just another phase. This is just another lesson. I'm gonna persist without exception. I've already made my mind up to follow these 7 decisions. I've already made my mind up to follow these 4 agreements. I'm at a fork in the road in life. This path doesn't look any better than this path, but I've already made up in my mind who I am, what my foundation is, what I stand on, what I'm all about. So I'm gonna make this decision. If it turns out to be the harder decision, or if it turns out to be, less than optimal, I'm gonna adapt and overcome. I'm going to get through it until I get to the next fork in the road, and then I'm going to make the best decision that I can make at that point in time. That's what life is all about. Life is all about adapting and overcoming, because we're not all dealt the same hand. We're not all born into millionaire or billionaire families, or to superstars or movie stars. We're not all born, with families that support us, or we're not all born with friends that support us, and some of us go through life and live very hectic lives and lives filled with trauma and stuff like that. But we can't control that stuff, especially at a young age. What we can control is our perception of what has happened to us. What we can control is how we choose to adapt and overcome those things that have been placed in front of us. We can choose whether to push through it, or we could choose to sit at that wall and say, woe is me, life isn't fair. It's just not fair. The cards are against me. How am I supposed to be successful if I can't do this? How am I supposed to, achieve my goals if I can't do this? And so you got to find a way to be persistent. You got to persist despite struggle. History is littered with people who chose to be successful despite having their backs against the wall. There are tons of people in every country, in every nation, all around the world. There are stories of people who were in tough situations, and despite being in those tough situations, still made a choice and were better off for it. We just have to get our minds wrapped around this type of stuff. Like, I'm trying to beat it into our heads, beat it into my head, building that foundation. And it doesn't have to be the 7 decisions. It doesn't have to be the 4 agreements. It doesn't have to be Invictus, see it through. It doesn't have to be any of the stuff that I've used as my foundation. Your foundation is unique to you, your struggle, and your walk through life. So build your foundation on what you feel is important. Memories, stuff that people have said to you, stuff that you picked up reading in books, stuff that you have experienced, knowledge that you've acquired, whatever you need your foundation to be, whatever is going to help you stand up strong, stand up tall, and face your demons, with full courage and faith that you're going to make it through no matter what, whether you fall or whatever, that you're going to get back up and you're going to try again, and you're going to be persistent. Whatever it takes, create that, because we need that. Because in those dark times when we're all by ourselves, when there's nobody else there and it's just us, we're going to need that foundation. We're going to need something to stand on, so that in the midst of adversity, in the midst of fear, in the midst of doubt, we know who we are, and we have the courage to be who we are.